So then Chad started to show me, and then my parents' house was really welcoming of friends, and so I was like, "Oh, come over," Hey, I'm back, and come over. And so the people that he brought with him were just different. You know what I mean? Like they were into the scene and listening to music that I didn't know. So it was like, well, like Stand as One was the Strife original name, and they had recorded like a demo, and like so that Inside Out blew my mind, and some of those bands. And then, Mike Hartsfield was just arriving into the band. And of course, he had a bunch of stuff that, he turned me on to, and all the new age stuff. And,
well, I remember when I got in,
I remember listening so much to like Lifetime and Turning Point, and just taking in as much as I could at that time. Those were the bands that really, when I heard them, I was like, I just need to keep listening and focus on this. And
were you playing guitar at this time, or had you been playing guitar?
Really learned at school while I was away.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah. So when I came back, those guys were like, "Oh, check this song out." And I played it, and they were like, "Oh, you can do this." So I did it in another band.
Okay.
And so we had some mutual friends did it in another band. Just however we could get the band done. I mean, I went from playing guitar to being the singer, and just we played a couple shows. We played with Strife actually, and kind of a famous one. So I was doing that, and that's why. I mean, the lineup was set. With Mike Hartsfield, Andrew, Chad, Rick and Sid. So that was set, and there wasn't. That's why. I mean, it happened before I came back.
And then they asked you to be in the band, though, like a few years later, because you graduate and then you're in Strife. If my years are correct, you're in Strife in '94?
Yeah. So during or right before the recording of One Truth.
Well, that was my next question. Did you play on that?
No.
Okay.
I didn't. But that rambunctiousness I was talking about, like, almost got Chad and I killed right before the recording.
Go into that, please.
I haven't thought about that in a minute. All right. Different world, no internet. The recycler was like, okay, so we're bored at someone's house. I remember it's Tim Beatty's house. We're playing guitar. He's got a guitar, and here's what I know. We're teaching each other how to play. Our friend Dave is there. He was in that first band that I was in. And hey, look, this guy is selling this car in the recycler. He's in El Rio in Oxnard. And he's looking for $300 for this Chevy Malibu 72 or something like that. I don't know if that's right, but it was a big car. And he called him, and he lied to the guy. Actually, said, we don't have $300, but what we do have is $100 and a really nice bass guitar, which we didn't have. So then we all got in the car and we drove down there. Drove to El Rio, and we said, we don't have a bass. We got $100. And the guy said, I'll take it. I'm sick of people trying to steal this car. It is missing a window. It didn't go into reverse. Okay.
So, minor thing.
So, yeah. So what are we going to do for fun is buy this car and then set rules for everybody, because everybody wants to drive the car. So the rules were, you're driving and you don't skid the car to a stop, you're out. If you don't run through like a hedge or a sign or a mailbox every 5 minutes, you're out. If you are stopped and you don't, burn out from a stop, you lose, you're out. So it was like, you must drive recklessly.
And the car already was a reckless vehicle. Like, it already had problems.
I mean, it was the next day. It was like Easter morning, so we got spray paint and painted it Easter eggs, '01 on the door, and
Where'd you keep
tribute
this
to
car?
the Dukes of Hazzard. Huh?
Where'd you keep the car? Did your parents let you keep it
On the street? So we ended up being so hard on the car that we were driving full speed, and the car shut off. The brakes went out the same time, and we were going down this hill, and we were jumping the car. 72 Chevy Malibu. Another car of mine was stolen from Andrew's apartment, actually, not long after, and I had photos of the car airborne. You know what I mean? Like, that disappeared because I think, forget the car. I wish I had those photos. It was we were so hard on the car that the wheels were cambered, and so when all the power went out, like, it just pulled the car off the road, kind of. I think that's what happened. We hit a group of palm trees going so fast that everybody other than me almost died. Like, literally, they were all so badly damaged that massive internal damage. I'm talking like long-term.
I want to say I remember something about this with Chad, right? Wasn't Chad, because he was with you?
Yeah, so Chad was sitting behind me, right? So when Strife was happening, I remember my first show was at the Macondo.
Okay.
And my foot was broken. I was on crutches. So my first two Strife shows, we did 2 shows before we left for, a New Hope festival in Madison, Wisconsin, which was amazing. I actually sent you the tour pass that I just found from that, a New Hope thing. So I just texted you that right before this thing. Anyway.
See, I'm bringing up memories.
Yeah, so, right. So that's what happened. So we were, I was like, you want to be in the band? Sure. Let me almost kill myself and Chad and 2 other guys. So that was kind of slow, but I think that happened right after the recording, actually. So they were just about to record everything, and then I was a part of it because they couldn't get themselves to the music studio. So I was driving them to and from. I was there, but I didn't learn the songs until I heard them being recorded.
Even though you knew you were in the band?
Pretty much. I mean, even in the cover artwork, I'm in the picture because we just played that first Macondo show, and they were doing the artwork. But yeah, I knew I was in. I maybe knew a couple of the songs just because I knew them already somehow.
Was the idea that the songs in One Truth, like, that they were already kind of baked, and it was like, hey, let's just have record as this unit, and then on what would become In This Defiance, we'll then obviously have Todd be on that record.
Yeah, it's like a totally different recording process, and everything was different then, of course. But I think it was like, this is expensive. This isn't a good place to like learn the songs. It was really fast. The recording was like, get the drums set up and sounding right, and that took a long time. And then it was like, I sat there when Andrew ran through the guitar parts. I mean, it was like, he'd do the part, yep, that's good, go to the next one, and like, it was, really fast. But the attention and focus was really on like just getting the drums recorded, sounding right. They were tuned, like it was really a big deal. And so I didn't know anything about that. So I wasn't really I didn't add anything there,
right.
And I don't think I would have. I was just kind of wide-eyed because I was going to shows and watching them before that. You know what I mean? These guys knew what they were doing. I didn't know yet.
So what was it like to go from being a spectator to this band that you like, and suddenly you're in one of the bigger bands in the scene? Like, what was that like for you? Like, in your mind, or were you just stoked to be there?
I was already, like, I played some shows already, and like, it wasn't weird. It was like, really, they just called me. I think they were like at a Denny's payphone. All right, we got to go get you an amp because you're in. And I was like, okay, cool, let's go get an amp. And they were my friends. I was hanging out with them anyway, going to shows with them, like, and so it wasn't weird, and it didn't seem like a big. It just seemed like fun. It didn't seem like a big thing, or it wasn't. They weren't a band that was like some big thing. You know, it wasn't like a. I didn't see them any differently than you would see your friends. So I guess that is all.
So when you were driving them for the whole One Truth thing, were you in the band at that point, or were you just their friend?
Yeah,
Just was like,
they asked me to be in the band, I think, and before that, or right when that was happening, like right before that, it was all I think scheduled. The recording was scheduled and everything was planned out, and it was like right then, and it was like you want to be in. So yeah, 94 is right. I think the thing got recorded. Chad and I crashed horribly. It took us a little while to bounce back, um, and then we off we went.
you know, what was that like though with One Truth, and then everything that kind of came after it came out? Because you guys literally seemed like you recorded that record, and I remember you guys came to Orange County, and I don't know if this was the intent or whatever, but like you guys were obviously the out of town band. You know, Ignite was playing all these Orange, and it was just like you guys came, and Hartsfield was even playing at that time. He was playing bass, and you
Oh
guys
yeah,
just came and you took it over, and then it just seemed like you guys got swept away to touring on a level that like a lot of the Orange County bands that Farside, Game Face, they were going on tour, but they would go on tour around school. They go on tour around their jobs. You guys just seemed like you went. And what was that like for you at that time?
I had some support, so it was it was great. My father in particular was like, "You got to do this. You know, you got an opportunity to go do things and see things." Once he understood that there was this big community, and like it didn't matter, I was leaving Thousand Oaks to go to Riverside. He just knew that when I got there, there were 300 friends there.
Right.
You know, it didn't matter where it was. So once he understood that, he was like, "Okay, you're safe. You're doing your thing. You're in this large group of people, and go." Like it was like here's how my life went. I didn't have an opportunity to go to do this or do that. Like, if you want to do this, I think it's a good idea. So it was like, I mean, the first U.S. tour we took, my mother's van, right? So like the One Truth tour wouldn't have. I mean, at this point, yeah, was I contributing? Yeah, a lot. Like transportation mostly, right? Like it was like we're screwed. Chad quit the band like 2 days before the One True tour, so I had to play bass, and we had no ride. I think Chad was like, I'm moving tomorrow, like I'm moving to Seattle, and he was gone, and it was like immediate, and we're like, holy shit. So and my parents knew all these guys. Some, they were invited over all the time, and then so they said, "Yeah, okay, take it. We have a van. Take the van." Hooked up a U-Haul to it and put everything in there, and went on the road. And then didn't really ever want to stop. It was full of like all kinds of problems, and I mean, it's crazy to think about how challenging it was, but I actually can't believe we would just go right back out and do it again and enjoy it.
But not just again, but again and again, and then you guys are going overseas, and you guys are like becoming legit, really good friends with like Sepultura, and like just like stuff like that. Like that to me is the amazing part of it, because none of that was by design. It was just because you guys had this love for this particular music that drove all this. Is that
Yeah, it's true, but we played with everybody, and so I had this preconceived idea of Sepultura. Thought I knew what they were about or what they would be like, So, and I didn't. I was wrong. They were like family. They were. That's how they relate to each other and to us, and so a lot of lessons to be learned there. But we didn't just play with like Sepultura. I mean, it was like ska. We played with a lot of ska bands, and like everything that was happening at the time, like we were kind of a part of it, doing things that were different and challenging and uncomfortable because we didn't know what it would be like. Didn't stop us.
Well,
So we
that was
played with
like the
everybody.
scene that you would come from. Like, I mean, I saw Strife a number of times. I played with Strife a few times. Like, I remember playing with them. It was Ice opening. There was like one other band, Strife, Gameface, and Sam I Am. And it was
Yeah.
but what I always loved was Strife's audience would come, and it wasn't like they were just there for Strife and they would leave. They were there for like the show. And I always I just like was like, wow, that's just cool, because sometimes you wouldn't always see that. You know, the certain band plays and then, you know, those people leave because hey, they've seen their band.
Yeah, that was the time where we would all be up front.
Right.
And it's great now to see some of these old pictures come back and go like, oh, look who, you know, look who's there for this other band. I think there was like a really, I guess, famous old Ignite picture where Rick is really featured, you know what I mean, in the crowd. And so there's a lot of that stuff floating around right now, which is so fun. Is like, let's see how many faces in the crowd we can pick out. And most of us are there. You know, we could find ourselves in crowds, all these other bands and all these other places.
So then after this, well, actually, there was at that show at the Ice House. I don't know if you remember this. You and Hartsfield had a little arrangement where, for at one point, I think you only did it in the first song. You guys kind of, it was very, very glam metal. That's the only way that I can describe this. You guys would walk up to each other and kind of bump in the front and then like step away. Do you remember this at all? Because I believe Mike does.
Wow.
let's break down the anatomy of this.
Okay, so there are things I would do to make other people laugh that don't belong on stage or whatever. And cool is not my thing, never was. But I will do things, stupid things, to make my friend just off stage laugh, or somebody that I know it's going to mean something to somebody else. So yeah, I mean, if it was glam, it was probably intentionally overly glam.
Oh, it was awesome. Well, I asked Mike, I said, hey, was that planned? He goes, yeah, it was planned between me and Todd. I was like, of course.
Wow, there probably was a ton of that. Yeah, we are still, that's a great example of who we are as a band still. We are still that way. That's what we do. We always have been. And there's always some of us does, you know, to make someone else laugh. And that's always happening. And I think that's, at this point, I think that's the point